The world of mountaineering was left in shock when news broke of the disappearance of Alpinist legend Marc-Andre Leclerc. Known for his fearless approach to climbing and his ability to push the limits of what was thought possible, Leclerc was a true icon in the world of adventure sports, but tragically, his incredible journey came to a devastating end in the icy wilderness of Alaska. In this video, we'll explore the story of Leclerc's final climb, the events that led to his disappearance, and the legacy he leaves behind as one of the greatest alpinists of our time. Get ready to be inspired, amazed, and deeply moved by the story of this incredible athlete and adventurer. Andre Leclerc was a charismatic climber that went down in climbing history. He was renowned for his extraordinary climbing abilities and his capacity to ascend the most difficult mountains and peaks in the globe. He would rather not be involved and has chosen to pursue his vocation in seclusion because of this preference. Leclerc's courageous expeditions, which often left him alone, carried him too far and treacherous heights, where only the most courageous climbers dared to take on the task. Marc-Andre Leclerc was born on October 10, 1992 in the city of Nanaimo, which is located in the province of British Columbia. He started climbing when he was young and quickly became passionate about it. His grandpa gave him a copy of the book Quest for Adventure written by Chris Bonington, which kindled his interest in the subject. At the age of 9, Leclerc started climbing regularly at Project Climbing Gym in Abbotsford, British Columbia. The climbing abilities of Leclerc were very remarkable. In 2014, he surpassed Alex Honnold's speed record on the Great Wall with a solo climb that lasted 57 minutes and completed a revolutionary solo link-up with 3 routes on Mount Slessy in British Columbia in under 12 hours. His first solo ascent of the Endless Patience route on Mount Robson's Emperor Face is considered to be one of his most spectacular accomplishments. Leclerc documented his recollections of the incident in a piece of writing. He commented on how difficult it is to put into words an experience that's so deep, which is something that a lot of people can relate to regardless of whether or not they climb. Leclerc tackles climbing differently than other people do, since you can even see his climbing in all 4 seasons and a wide variety of circumstances. Even under the most difficult of circumstances, he seemed to be having a good time and was able to go from climbing with his bare hands to climbing with ice axes with ease. His motions were so fluid that they seemed nearly easy. That was a demonstration of unadulterated contentment. Marc-Andre Leclerc was a true master of the art of climbing, if one can call it that. Before contacting Marc-Andre Leclerc in March 2018, Ryan Johnson had been planning a climb up the main tower of Mendhall Tower, which stands at the height of 2,500 feet. For many years, the whole race is challenging, but the last 750 metres have an unexpected combination of snow, ice and rock. Johnson was a native Alaskan who hailed from the village of Juneau and was an accomplished climber. For instance, he was able to pick up on even the most minute shifts in the wind's velocity because of his experience as a gold and silver miner in southeast Alaska. The sky was blue, there was a high pressure region that would remain in place for the next 3 days at least, and the snowpack seemed to be unchanging. The circumstances were ideal for Leclerc and Johnson to try to climb the north wall of the main tower, which stood at a height of 2,500 feet. Even in the best of circumstances, the north face of the main tower is a very difficult obstacle to overcome. It never captured the sun in the late winter, and the wall ends at a series of crevices that litter a snowfield that is 55 degrees for a few hundred feet before flowing out onto a flat stretch. The ascent had been well planned out by Leclerc and Johnson, and they had stashed away all of their gear and they would need until the next day. The plan was for them to ski back to Juneau after traversing the West Mendhall Glacier Trail. They both were seasoned climbers who adhered to the philosophy that it was best to go rapidly and effectively across uncharted territory. They did not carry significant amounts of equipment. In particular, Leclerc was noted for a minimalist approach. They dug a hole in the snow and buried their skis and an avalanche probe in preparation for their ascent to the main tower. They fastened a fluorescent vest on the probe so that they could find it from a greater height on the face. At the very top of the main tower, Aaron Johnson put up their tent so they could spend the night there. They most likely subsisted on trail mix and drank water made from snow that had melted. Leclerc said a happy text to Brett Harrington, his girlfriend, who was still in Tasmania just before 10:30 am. "I've reached the top, love. That was a fantastic ascent," he composed. A handful of the pictures he gave her were uploaded on Instagram. He commented, "Rare live update here," with a picture of Mount Fairweather in the distance looking west. Johnson, who wasn't there at the time, recorded the scenario in the meantime to show his face. As soon as Leclerc left the mountains, he would contact his girlfriend Harrington to let her know he was okay, but she started to worry when Wednesday came and he hadn't contacted her. She sent him a text, "I hope you are returning safely. You sent a summit message a while ago." She contacted Juneau Mountain Rescue to check in when she didn't hear back. The climbing community in Juneau, a town of 32,000, was tiny and close-knit, even though it wasn't known as a climbing destination. Johnson was well known by many JMR members, and several of them had even gone rock climbing with him. Harrington was worried that she could be driving too quickly, but she couldn't get rid of this sensation. Harrington's phone rang the next morning. Gabe Hayden from JMR answered. When she answered the phone, her pulse raced. "We discovered their skis," Brett Hayden said. Johnson often went climbing with Hayden. He explained to Harrington that a Coast Guard chopper from Sitka had flown to the towers and used an infrared camera to search the north face and surrounding glacier for body heat. Nothing was found after searching. A body was not discovered. It was believed that Leclerc and Johnson had been down the route they had taken when an avalanche washed them off the hill. When Harrington arrived in Juneau on 10th of March, the hunt for Leclerc and Johnson had already ended the day before on the 9th when Harrington arrived. Before the weather took a turn for the west, a helicopter from the Coast Guard had only made it as far as the southern arm of the glacier. The visibility was very poor, and the gusts were too severe for a helicopter to reach the towers. Instead, members of JMR stationed in the hangar of Alaska National Guard at Juneau International Airport started constructing a chronology of events based on the text messages. By this point, a few of Leclerc and Johnson's friends, family members and climbing companions had amassed in Juneau. They were overwhelmed with a range of emotions while they waited for the weather to improve. The corpses of Leclerc and Johnson were never located despite the extensive searches that were conducted. The trip that Leclerc has taken is about so much more than simply another climbing narrative. Some people will be inspired and amazed by the account of how he committed himself to living a much simpler life, yet because of the climber, Leclerc will not be forgotten. Not only because during his short life he redefined the limits of what was possible in mountaineering, but also because of his extraordinary ability to find happiness with the bare minimum and to extract from the mountains he climbed the energy he needed to confront life. If you've been following along with my narrative up to this point, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to you. If you like the story similar to this one, please take a moment to click like and share your thoughts in the space provided. If you would like to see more material like this, please click subscribe and ensure that your notification bell is on. This will ensure you're alerted when a new video is uploaded. We hope this video has shed some light on the life and tragic end of an incredible climber. Remember, mountaineering can be a dangerous and unforgiving sport, but it's also one that challenges us to push our limits and reach new heights. Stay safe out there and never forget the legacy of Marc-Andre Leclerc. We will meet you again in our next video. Until then, peace.